Do I go?
Yeah, you.
Okay, sorry, people were getting in their seats. So, all right. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the 2025 BRIC Summit. My name is Xochitl Torres. I'm the Program Director of BRIC's Arts, Media, and Entertainment High Road Training Partnership, which is an industry-based and worker-focused training partnership to prepare Californians for high-wage, high-skill careers. In partnership with the California Workforce Development Board, we're proud to lead the first high road training partnership initiative in the arts, media, and entertainment sector that brings together education and training programs with employment opportunities to drive economic mobility for arts, media, and entertainment workers in California's creative economy. The Arts, Media, and Entertainment High Road Training Partnership is a network of community-based organizations, labor unions, and registered apprenticeship programs that facilitate skills training, mentorship, career development, and wraparound services to participants to help them target apprenticeship placements, union training, and high-wage jobs across film, TV, animation, visual effects, games, music, audio, live events, and live entertainment. And thanks to the Los Angeles County Department of Economic Opportunity, they have invested $1.5 million in the Arts, Media, and Entertainment High Road Training Partnership in expanding access to high-quality training programs and prioritizing communities impacted by COVID-19. With support from all our partners, we can continue to increase training opportunities and access points to the entertainment industry to underserved, incumbent, and COVID-19 impacted Angelenos. And I'm excited to introduce today's panel because our goal for High Road Training Partnership is to pair highly skilled talent with employment opportunities, so it is so critical that we find ways to empower talent to be entrepreneurial and take control of their careers as independent creators. REINVENT, the creator mindset, will focus on what it means to be a creator in 2025. Panelists will discuss the strategies indie creators can leverage to activate their communities, maintain agency as their small business grows, and most importantly, create on their own terms. And before I pass it off to our moderator today is the Senior Awards Editor at Rotten Tomatoes, where she hosts the Award Tour podcast, as well as Make Universal's employee podcast, Seen on the Screen. As a film journalist, she's written for various print and digital publications, interviewed countless celebrities, and moderated hundreds of panel discussions at film festivals, press conferences, and screening Q&As. And with that, I will hand it off to our moderator, Jacqueline Coley. Thank you.
Man. I know I'm going to disappoint after that intro. Happy Friday, everyone. I'm very excited to speak to this incredible panel, who I'm not going to give half the sauce I got on that intro because their words are going to speak louder than that. But please allow me to introduce our panel today. We have a wide variety of filmmakers and people without the industry that are going to give us a perspective on how all of you can approach the creator indie mindset. So without further ado, we have Patrick Caligari. We also have Leslie Eza and Ric Carlo Handy. I'm going to start with you, Ric Carlo, because first of all, I think everyone in this room knows you. And I'm like, this is like a family reunion for you. But what is it like right now for independent creators, production companies, the small businesses that surround our industry? And I specifically want you to talk to people that are trying to do independent narrative scriptive, because your history in the industry, I think you can really speak to that right now.
Yeah, excuse me. I mean, it's no secret it's tough, right? I mean, there's a lot of folks in the world that have a lot of access to free content, right? And it's hard to beat free. And so that's from NBC on down to YouTube single guy page, right? Like, that's vying for their attention is the toughest thing. But I do think because of that, there is an opportunity to carve out like your niche, your voice, right? And find your audience. And because there's a lot of tools available to monetize your content, it just really depends on, I always say, you have to be a little bit like water and go with the flow of what's happening around you. I think a lot of times people actually get stuck in our business because they have an idea of what their career needs to look like, and it's usually based on a model or a paradigm that may not exist anymore, right? So if you're a music artist, for example, you're not going to go get a deal and put make a demo, right? And then hopefully that they'll develop you you got to go out and you got to make a splash yourself. And I think it's much like that with the content now as well.
Patrick, I want to bring it to you. For folks that don't know, you're definitely a advocate right now for our industry and a social media influencer, but your history in the industry is with reality television, and that is an area that has seen a lot of change over the past few years. I'd be curious if you could give us a brief snapshot of what it's like for independent reality television production.
Well, I think a snapshot would be like sitting in your living room surfing and scrolling LinkedIn all day. For a lot of our industry, we've seen a 60% decline in unscripted production, and that was a massive industry here in Los Angeles because there were so many channels and networks and cable channels and hundreds of them, and they were all producing unscripted content. It was a low economic type of content, and now that's been truncated into 5 or 6 main streaming networks, and they're producing 4 or 5 unscripted shows or reality shows a year now annually. So you can see where the content kind of truncated. Not to mention, reality, in a sense, is a genre that is 20 years old. It is starting to feel a little worn. We've seen this before. When I left to come out to LA, I was a generation of must-see TV. I thought sitcoms were the in thing, and then when I came here, sitcoms actually kind of were on the outbound. So we've seen this cycle where it could be game shows or talk shows, and they come and they ebb and flow. And the problem with unscripted is I think everybody kind of knows in this generation of social media and a leaning towards authenticity and originality, you can see sort of like the cheats that used to be in the show. It doesn't feel as real as it used to be, and why we've probably seen more of a push towards documentary style programming as well. So, there are a lot of unscripted colleagues of mine that are trying to figure out where do we go from here, where do we pivot to, and it looks like the 2 main areas would be brands, going directly to brands that want to make their own programming. We all kind of laugh, but Chick-fil-A is now creating their own brand and programming, and we're seeing other brands and companies kind of going back to this old-fashioned model. Soap operas were originally created to sell soap. So we're starting to see a lot more brand-centric programming. At the same time, a lot of creators, and I say creators or production personnel, are moving into that creator economy where it's like, hey, there's influencers, and they're just as big as any other production company here in LA. And, maybe Mr. Beast wants to make a reality show, but we're actually starting to see even more lower tier influencers who have a niche want to create their own programming, whether they want to put that on YouTube or whether they want to make that independently and then sell it back to a network.
Leslie, I'm going to bring you to the animation side because I think people get, a misconception about animation. They don't realize how vast the medium is as far as independent productions and how much there's a lot more independent animation than people realize. So I'd be clear if you could maybe, first of all, explain what that landscape is that maybe folks don't know about, and then what is it like for those creators right now?
Yes, thank you. I think it's an exciting time, and I just want to, I don't know if Adam's in the room, but I really appreciate his presentation and how he just, displayed the data of how exciting it is to be an independent creator, and help ground the more anecdotal information I would like to share. As a director of operations at CFA Hollywood, one of the many privileges that I have working there is through its Annie Awards, which they provide every year. I get to be in contact with a lot of amazing animation independent creators, mainly through our festival partners with Annecy, Ottawa, Kaboom, and AnimeFest Zagreb. And, in inviting the winners of those festivals to submit to the Annie Awards and screen for our members, many of whom are voters, I get to see such amazing talent, such great storytelling, and it's just more of that, right? I think what you're mentioning with the challenge, though, is how do we scale that? How do we make that sustainable? So where those creators can do that, and have a living wage, and I think that's the crux of it, and that's one of the reasons why Legends Animated was formed to help independent creators basically have access to funding that they wouldn't normally have. And that's mainly through our fiscal sponsorship service. We basically take an independent creator under our 501c3 status, and through that they can then apply to grants, receive donations, and provide tax deductions to their supporters. So yeah, and with this year we have a new exciting chapter where we're interested in helping to develop animation worker co-ops, which is a whole other landscape. Thank you. Thank you. Which is exciting because it's very aligned with our mission as a nonprofit, and it also helps independent creators also tap into financial resources that are exclusive to co-ops. And I'm happy to share more of that. So go ahead.
No, we'll talk, well, we only have so much time because I also want to mention that this is not just me up here asking questions. We will have a Q&A at the end, and I really want to hear questions from all of you because I feel they will be way more directed and specific, especially for how you can apply this day to day. But I want to talk a little bit about, as we approach it, there's a lot of doom and gloom. We all know that. But there are a lot of folks doing things well. And like when I think of somebody that is maybe operating within the studio system but approaching it with that creator indie economy, I would look at a film like Sing Sing that was up for the Academy Awards, last year. For folks that don't know, that production had an equal artist equity contract where every single person who worked on the film got the same wage, and they were all financially beneficial to the film, however much success that it had. To me, that is a great attaboy for how we can look at the sustainability of our industry, and it's kind of like marrying the two. And they've applied that to their first film, Jockey, their latest one that was just at Sundance, Train Dreams. This is like built into their production. Be curious from all of you if you have someone within the industry that you would like to shout out in that respect, where they're doing it different, they're doing it new, but they're finding a way in these, like, again, not very happy-go-lucky times to still have that entrepreneurial mindset and keep the industry thriving. And Ric Carlo, I'll start with you.
I mean, yeah, I think I tend to look at corporations and their business models. Individual, of course, there's a ton of people that are doing great things individually, but I think that it's harder to sustain following what an individual did, right? Because they might have met the opportunity at a moment, right? And so, you know, our company, I'm at a company called Blink 49 right now, and there's a couple of other production companies I see doing this, and studios partnering with it, where it's more of a service-based business, you know, because I think that oftentimes we think of this business as, you know, creator-led, right? And definitely folks with the ideas and the create opportunities, but the people that make up the economy are the workers too, right? And the workers are providing a service to the creative entity, right? And so now creators are and companies I'm seeing thinking of themselves more as a service, right? A service to brands, a service to other creators, a service where we can, you know, collaborate more and help do more with less, if you will, right? So I think that's the one thing that we ought to think about, is that, you know, even anyone you admire in this business, they're not only doing the jobs and the ideas that they themselves came up with all the time. Even someone like Shonda Rhimes, the show that just came out, that's not like her. She's not only doing her ideas. There's other folks, you know, that have ideas. And so I'm just shouting out anyone that's working collaboratively and not independently, because that is the way we're all going to make it work.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's The Residents on Netflix, certified fresh this morning at 84%. Sorry, I do work there. Leslie, I'll bring it to you next on the folks that you want to maybe shout out that are doing it new and right.
Yeah, a couple people that come to mind is Vivian Medrano. I mean, I would love to meet her. She is the creator behind Has Been Hotel. And, I'm forgetting the other.
Has Been Hotel is amazing, by the way. It was an independent production that went to Amazon, and it's one of the highest rated shows on Amazon. Sorry again. 100% certified fresh on the tomato meter. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I gotta give him the bio, though.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Yeah, and just to add to that, you know, she started off on YouTube and on Patreon, and just built this massive following through that with her amazing work and her team. And I believe Hazbin Hotel is distributed by A24 and is now on Amazon, which I highly recommend you watch it. Season 2 is highly anticipated because it's like, I think at the time it streamed, it was number 2 in all of Amazon. So it's really well done. And I just really appreciate just the grassroots way of how she developed her company and her team, and just created the work that she wanted to create. And her accountability is really directly to her supporters. And I think that's such a brilliant way to do it. I'm hoping, just to find ways to make it so that many creators have that kind of access and following. So there's that, and I'm hoping that at some point we have her in spaces like this to kind of pick her brain and see how we can scale that and make that be more success stories like that. So there's that, and then there's also the streaming service called Means.tv that is a worker-owned company. Also a great place to explore and see what's possible, like creators collectively coming in and distributing their own work and platforming their own work. So yeah, those are the two.
Those are great ones. Patrick?
I got to give a shout out to the Share platform, which is run by CEO Aaron Norman, who's I'm actually involved with this platform, which is trying to break away and move sort of production into the creative economy. What the platform does is exactly the Sing Sing model, plus a few extra things. It finds sort of takes the Angel Studio model of crowdsourcing to fund projects. Not only when the projects are up there on the site, then the equity is actually distributed to all the crew members. So everybody from the gaffer to audio mixing to hair and makeup, they all get an equal percentage, not an equal percentage, but everybody gets points off the back end. And then most importantly, it also provides distribution ways for people to get their content out there. So anybody can bring a project on there. And it's not just for creators bringing the project, but for anybody who works in the industry. If there's somebody who works in production finance, or if there are gaffers, or if there are grips who are looking to team up with other content creators. Basically, the idea is that there's so many production workers and creatives and filmmakers who want to make their own material, who want to do original storytelling again. I think it gets heartbreaking when you see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang gets a reboot, but there's so many original scripts out there that are just getting passed up upon, and we know the audiences are craving original stories. You can see it with Severance. Severance is the #1 show on television, and it's an original story. It's beautifully shot. The episode unveils itself slowly, so it's good television and good storytelling are still going to captivate audiences. So I think the creator community is really kind of saying, well, if I'm just going to be stuck at this gatekeeping system, if I'm just constantly going to be told no, if we're still just going to be doing prequels and sequels, then I'm going to break away and I'm going to make this on my own. And I think that's really been sort of the proactive mindset that's been taking over the community.
I mean, it's very valuable, too, to think about the community itself, because I think in, again, difficult times, community is the only thing that saves. And building that is interesting. Places like this, BRIC, help you build a community, but there's more to it than that. So I'd be curious, and I think I'm going to start with, Leslie, with you with animation, about not just how you can build community, but more importantly, how that's a huge part of what is going to really, I think, drive the next few years in the creator economy.
Yeah, I feel like community is everything in all aspects of our life, but in particularly when you think of the independent creator, absolutely, whether it's crowdfunding, where you want to engage the community and say, hey, this is, you're being vulnerable and saying, hey, this is a project I'm really passionate about. Please join me in making this project happen. You really need that community engagement. And, I feel like one of the best ways to do that is, really make the case that they're part, to make them come up, be a part of that creative journey, as well as find the mutual benefit of how they can invest in that project, whether it's perks on a crowdfunding situation, or even, if you do partner with someone like Legends Animated, or a nonprofit, I should say, like a Legends Animated or another nonprofit, and you have access to grants, the grant funders want to know, how is this a community benefit? How is my dollars, whether it's tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, how is that going to make an impact in the communities that I'm passionate about? So you definitely making the case of, providing educational opportunities, whether it's having crew and training up people who want to be directors or have more leadership roles, making the case to grantors about that. Making the case that you're going to provide workshops or behind-the-scenes footage, or just various things that provide opportunities for learning and really helping really take the veil off and help people see and understand and appreciate more the artistic endeavors of your project is really appealing to not only just your individual grassroots supporters who are investing in your project, but also on the other end of the spectrum, grantors who are providing the higher amounts of funding. They really want to see that, and they're part of that community, and they're potentially a financial partner to help you reach out to that community. So, yeah.
I love that. And we're going to talk about funding here in a minute, because everybody wants to know that. How do I get it made? How do I get it funded? Ric Carlo, I want to ask you, though, about this, because both you and everyone on this panel has had a long career, but especially you. I feel like you worked in the wild, wild west a little bit of the television era. And one of the benefits of being independent and having this creator mindset is you do have freedom, but that also means you open yourself up to bad actors. There could be people that are not going to have, there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there, and the more desperate people become in bad times, the more of them that seem to pop up. So I feel you're a good judge of people, and you can maybe help some of the folks listening here how to decipher who are the right people to partner with so that your community stays positive and uplifting. Look, it's hard, I know.
It's tough. I mean, I've had the, sad, misfortune of having to tell people that have spent $1 to $10 million on projects that they just weren't ever going to be able to sell them, and also people have really believe on shows that everyone tells them they're never going to sell. And then, one story is a show called, you guys seen the show, The Toys That Built Us? Yeah. So my old boss, Brian Volkowitz, created that show, and he pitched it for 10 years. And our agent, literally, they got into an argument, like, that show will never sell, like, stop pitching it, and eventually it became the biggest hit for his company. But I say that to say there are things, you never fail until you give up, right? But you still got to make a living while you do it, right? You still got to pay your bills every day, right? And so I do think we have to have a little bit of risk-taking for those things we're really passionate about, and you do have to be discerning, but you have to be calculated, because there's a gamble in this business, right? Like, you can't just because you really have this great idea, I wouldn't suggest selling all your assets to make your movie, right? On the flip side of that, when it comes to like sustaining a career, I think you want to partner with peers that you see constantly having forward momentum in the areas that you have. I think too often we try to, network with people that do what we think we want to do versus networking with the people that are doing what we are doing, right? Because then you guys can kind of rise together, and that can be your litmus test, because now you're never just making this decision alone, that's how we know a lot of things in the world, right? Because, Rotten Tomatoes, right? Like, a lot of people watched it. Okay, it might be good. I'm going to check that out, right? It's not as risky, because we have a lot of people that said it was good already. And so I think that's how you have to have your community, right? Peers that are going through the same things you're going through and helping you make these decisions in real time. But you can't get too risky. Don't bet it all on somebody you just met ever.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to bring it to you, Patrick, about this because I feel in this current moment, everyone's got to be kind of a part-time influencer a little bit. So I want you to take your producer hat off and more put your influencer hat on, because this is truthful. Like, I think there's a pressure to document everything to a certain degree, but then there's also pressure of, hey, I want to be making things. So how do you balance that as someone who, look, you were just talking about a big part of your day is like, I got to edit this video, but then balance that with the reality of, but I don't want to be just burnt out on that. I still want to save some of my creativity for the work that I want to do.
I mean, a creator's going to create no matter what. Like, I mean, that's the one thing about, I think, the creative industry is, and you know, take this with a grain of salt, but like if production workers weren't doing productions and getting paid for it, they would still probably want to do it either way because they love it so much. And that's a passion that sometimes doesn't get translated as much. We got into this industry not for infinity pools and Malibu homes. We got into this industry because we're storytellers, and we're going to tell stories whether we're getting paid or not. It is interesting though, because there is this massive shift towards social media, and I think one of the big things that I'm seeing, I guess, my colleagues struggle with is doing these transitions, because we've been so caught up in ways of like producing TV, but that doesn't exist in the social media world where your first 3 seconds are the most precious real estate. But, you know, so I have friends who are cinematographers who are like, I did this great Instagram reel and it's a beautiful opening vista. And I was like, you just blew your shot. Unfortunately, you have to kind of break out of the mindset and start opening yourself up to how different forms of media are made. And the crazy thing is right now is there are no rules anymore. And I think many people are trying to hold on to these rules of a movie is 90 minutes. A movie could be anything now. A movie could be horizontal. It could be vertical. It doesn't have to be a short film. It could be 20 minutes. Content could be short. And I think really, you know, I think a lot of people really need to start understanding that media isn't these various types of genres. Really, our future is going to be dependent on what is the amount of focus you're giving to the material. Like, for example, if I'm sitting on a subway, you know, waiting for a subway train to come, I'm going to be looking at short form content just to kill 5 minutes. I'm not going to start the White Lotus sitting on a subway platform. But then when I want to actually fully focus my time and attention and get the popcorn bucket up and get in my sheets and fully start watching a movie or a television program, that's going to be much more heavy focus. So I think really we're going to have to start seeing content not as like this is a short form content, this is a streaming content, but really just kind of like what is the amount of focus that we're giving to the material in front of us.
Yeah, every executive that worked at Quibi is just crying right now after that speech.
Quibi was ahead of its time, to be fair. Launching March 2020 was not a good time, unfortunately.
Poor Jeffrey.
I just want to add something to that real quick, because the one thing I am seeing across every network and every piece of content is you again, like what Patrick just said, if you are going to distribute anything, you want to have a plan for every eventuality that someone might touch your material. And even TikTok and Instagram viewers are two different people. So you have to have a plan for all of it, and that's the only way you can really capture the same size audience that you used to capture when there was 13 channels on the dial.
That's fair. Just a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to bring it to audience questions, but I'd like Leslie and Ric Carlo to talk a little bit about funding right now, and maybe just give me a quick hit, 30 seconds on somebody that's had some inventive funding sources and how they found them. Leslie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm sorry. There was a team member or someone on my table that mentioned this, said it well, that gone are the days where you just get one funder to fund your film. You just got to find all the different pots, put them together, and make it happen. And that's essentially what Legends Anime is trying to do in terms of the nonprofit sector, allowing creators to have access to the grants, again, and the donations. And then this is an invite to folks in the room who are interested in independent animation. consider worker co-ops because, again, it helps in terms of finding unique pots of funding. There are dedicated finances that are exclusively funding worker co-ops, but it also helps in terms of, finding colleagues that you work well with and sharing the load of creating a film or a project, and also the responsibility of managing a company together. It's a great way to go and explore that. And one quick thing is just a slight plug. Tomorrow, we go deeper into it in our virtual panel. Legends Anime is offering at 3 p.m. So if you want to know more and ask questions that we may not get to today, please feel free to check that out at 3 p.m.
Yeah, I think I'm going to answer this question a little differently because, obviously there's a lot of different unique ways out there. Patrick mentioned them to go out there and raise the money or get the cost down, et cetera. But really what we're in the business of is storytelling. So if there's a great story you feel that needs to be told, there's a couple ways that I would suggest going about it yourself when you don't have the funding. And one of those ways is create some kind of IP to start with. One of our partners, Light Exorcist, they had a great, Star Wars level epic that they wanted to tell, but they weren't going to get it funded. It was going to take 7-8 years, right? So they made a graphic comic, got it printed, physically printed, and just started selling it and sharing it with tons of people. And now they have a deal to develop it, but also they own the IP, no matter what happens, right? The second example I'll give is a friend of mine, Stephanie Lidacker, who did the Murder 101 podcast. She also did Piketown Massacre. And this is a podcast that she had no plans on producing herself, but as a reality TV producer, she started doing interviews and started doing the research and turned it into a podcast. And 90 days later, 80 million people had heard it. And now she has another podcast that she did the similar way, and now they have a scripted deal, and they're doing a doc, and Amazon, there's a whole big Amazon article about it. So my point is there's a lot of, the way that the technology we have access to now works, there's a lot of ways you can just get started if you really believe in telling that story. Don't get stuck on the medium you tell the story in, because then you could be fundraising for your theatrical film for the next 10 years, and then, for all we know, people are watching movies different 10 years from now.
That's a very good point. Nicole, I think, has the microphone. Or, no, there we go. Never mind. Sorry. Question, anyone? Oh.
I'm coming. I got it.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for participating in this panel. I think it's very illuminating to think about, based on Adam's research, about how entertainment's kind of going more individual creator driven. I'm curious to hear from you guys just how do you balance being entrepreneurial, kind of having more of that influencer kind of vibe where it's almost always on with what I would consider just a little bit, I'm tired of hustle culture, of the grind set. So how do you balance this new world where you might have to be more entrepreneurial, might have to put more energy in it, with this also need for like boundaries and personal life, or do you feel like, is that balance achievable?
I'm going to direct this one to Patrick, maybe.
The hustle never stopped. I think even when I was an unscripted producer, I was hustling. From show to show, I was a hired gun. So whether I was working for CBS or then NBC or then Discovery, it was every 3 months. It was time to find a new project, especially when I was working just mostly field production, until finally you get to the executive level, and then your stay on the show becomes longer and longer and longer. I think right now, nobody knows exactly where this industry is going to be 5 years from now. And so there's a lot of chaos. And I think everybody kind of understands that through the chaos is where the opportunity is. So we've never seen the industry like this. It's flatlined, it's broken in some parts, and that is where the transition comes from. It's like, you either have two mindsets, which is, if I was in Detroit 1907, am I going to hang out with the blacksmith shooting horses, or am I going to see what's happening down at the Ford factory? I think we really kind of have to lean into, at this point, what is the possibilities or the realms of the possibilities. And it's because doing the same thing that we did do is not working anymore. And I think the industry is struggling because some of it is trying to fit back into the 2019 pre-COVID model. And unfortunately, that ecosystem doesn't exist anymore. So while we're in this period of transition, it really is kind of trying to figure out what is next. And the people that are the most proactive, the people that are most seeking out what is coming, are going to be sort of, the winners in this game. And that's kind of how I see it at this point.
Go ahead.
Just a real quick add, like I totally resonate with if there's any hesitation with that because of the burnout and so forth. And I may be a broken record, but this is yet another benefit to worker co-ops, because then you could have a team member who's really into the marketing piece of it, and you have your other team members who are more focused on the creative side. So yeah, just finding ways to divide the labor among yourselves and divide the rewards. The benefit of worker co-ops is that any surplus you get from whatever project you're doing and promoting gets directly to the workers who actually put in the labor. So yeah, another reason to consider that.
Make your own baseball team. Get a shortstop. Shortstop would be a marketing person.
Can I add one more thing? And it's also about utilizing your skills that you have. I think a lot of people sometimes don't tap into their own resources and utilize what they have, and I think I could use an example of this with my social media. I actually started my career in news. I did 2 years in New York City doing live broadcasts with CBS and then Court TV. But I brushed off those skills when it came to social media. If you look at what my social media is, they're news packages. And they're written exactly the same as news packages. I just translated those original broadcast skills into social media. And that was, again, leveraging something that I knew would work. And that's taking something old and putting it into the modern.
Love that. Another question, anyone? Sorry, I didn't want to. Yes.
Carson, sorry.
1 second. Oh, wait.
You are.
Oh, sorry. We'll come back. Okay.
Thank you guys for sitting up here and doing this. I work primarily in the K through 12 space and focus primarily in high school mentorship programs and working with kids. A lot of questions right now about what they should be doing next. Do I go to school? Do I make my own things? Like, how do I navigate this changing landscape? So I wonder if you guys could give us your thoughts on that.
Ric Carlo, I'm going to direct that one to you.
Well, we work in schools as well, and I came from a high school program where all the things that we learned in high school didn't exist by the time I got into the workplace, right? But back to what Patrick said, I had the basic framework of editing, right? And that has still carried me through as an executive and all these other areas. So none of the skills they're learning won't go to waste, right? The one thing though that I will say is that they have to kind of forge their own pathway based on what they have access and opportunity with, simultaneously with, maybe having their own channel and doing their own thing. I think gone is the days of like us picking, okay, I'm going to work at the Ford factory. This is going to be my one job for the rest of my life. I do think that we're all in a little bit of a space of the side hustle economy, where if you want to be creative and you want to build your own audience, you should do that. But you should also pursue, a long-term career. And as far as going to college or not, I do think we're in a space now where when I'm saying pursue a long-term career is skills-based, right? So what skills can I learn in high school, learn in trade school, or gain in college that then will lead me to a career? I don't suggest anyone going to get their master's degree to become a director, right? I just don't know that that's the way you spend your money today.
Yeah, I want to make sure we get one last question. We only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to go to this. Oh, this one was right here. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we had one right here. I'm so sorry.
We do two.
Yeah, we'll do two. I'm so sorry, everyone. If we can go over, I'll do it. Is that okay? Okay, good. We'll do it.
Hi. You're fine.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for speaking on this. I feel super inspired. I actually had 2 questions, but I'm okay to do one. Jacqueline, my question for you would be, how did you get into film journalism? I feel like we haven't heard enough of your story today. So
Girl, why do you want to hear? I will say this. There are some people that want to be journalists in here, and this is the one thing I will have, and it's a lesson that I'm learning right now. And people like Patrick and other folks have really taught me that is gone are the days where you're just going to be like Roger Ebert, going to Sundance, reviewing movies, and calling yourself a film journalist. Everybody I know now is doing everything. They got TikToks, they have YouTubes, they do that. So you have to like be diversified. I would say also to what these folks were saying about, do you need to go to college? I started as a project manager. I used to work in health information technology before this job. Yeah. I got this job by running my mouth. That's the truth. I started running my mouth on Twitter. That eventually led to running my mouth in IndieWire and the Austin Chronicle. That eventually led to running my mouth at Rotten Tomatoes. And I think a lot of people get scared about, you know, it was so funny. Patrick saw it. There was somebody from LA County, and she's here, and I didn't waste a minute. I was like, I have a question for you. And I would just say that if you retrace any of my jobs, it was probably being in the room with somebody like that, and I just wasn't scared to be like, I have questions for you. And yeah, don't be afraid to run your mouth respectfully. I think I was respectful. Was I respectful?
Very respectful.
But I was running my mouth. I really was. I was like, I want to talk about these tax incentives. Like, what are you doing? Like, so don't be afraid to do that. That is my best advice. Keep running your mouth respectfully.
Respectfully.
Seriously. And whether that's on social media or wherever it is. And don't be afraid to have a take. Don't be afraid to have a perspective on the industry and speak it to people, because once you get past like senior VP exec, they do not get exposed to people doing that very often. And honestly, they find it refreshing. Like it's weird, like some kind of like punishment thing with them. I don't know. They like it. They do. So yeah, just don't be afraid to run your mouth. There you go. Thank you for that.
So much, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
By the way, Kelly loved you. She's my boss.
I did run my mouth to her, though. I did. I was like, listen, love that. Thank you.
So my question is on the opposite side of education, right? So the student-focused conversation, I think, is more open to non-traditional, but for the educators, especially like at community colleges and universities, and even some high school, right, who are committed to the traditional business model, how do we support expanding their knowledge so that they're teaching young folks all of these opportunities in the industry?
I don't even know who to do. You want to got it? Okay.
Yeah, because so one of the things Legends Animate is doing is we're partnering with East Los Angeles College, which is a community college, and developing, or we have developed, we launched in the fall of last year, a pre-apprenticeship animation and VFX certificate program. So yeah, I think finding work-based learning opportunities is key at this point. As well as we're in talks to also have a business class for creative entrepreneurship. I really feel like that's the key, yeah. I mean, it's in talks because, you know, Trump and people in the education world, as folks know, are hurting. So we'll see what the budget is for that. But yeah, I feel like giving them the tools to be entrepreneurial, and so they can use the skills-based learning and then find the pathways, because it may not be in the creative animation space. It could be in medical fields where they need animation to simulate, you know, what's going on, or NASA or so forth. So yeah, I think that's the path.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like the work-based learning is going to be key, and the teachers at community colleges have to welcome, right, these work-based teachers in, and they have to be understanding of that. And the main thing is that we all have to remember is that we are storytellers, but our business is technology. Like the actual business that we're in, from videotape was a technology, right? The phonograph is a technology, and all of our technology is getting upgraded by different advances in technology. And so if your concept of how the industry works is based on the technology from 20 years ago, and you haven't come up to date to the technology of today, then you need to invite folks that have that knowledge into your classroom. Or what we can also do is encourage the teachers to do, some additional education over the summer themselves. But my point is, though, is that a lot of times what I see in the classroom, a lot of times with the teachers, is they're teaching concepts from film school that may not apply to the business today.
And just kind of to take off that, what doesn't change is storytelling. Like, even though we went from the typewriter to the word processor to ChatGPT, the idea of telling stories we could trace back all the way to, campfire, cave talk. So, but that part doesn't change, and that is, again, the skill set that you want to teach to the younger generation, how to tell a story. That's going to be probably one of the most imperative skills that you could have, especially if you're going to come into this industry moving forward.
I want to thank all of you for your incredible questions. I want to thank the folks at BRIC for hosting this panel, obviously our panelists, and all of you for watching. Thank you all very much.
Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for that. Like, you guys really fed my soul, so thank you. I also would be remiss. Legends Animated is an apprenticeship employer. That is a co-op. And they're able to access incentives to hire entry-level workers. So it doesn't matter what size your company is, we'll work with you. Also, East LA's pre-apprenticeship with them maps to our apprenticeship program. Thank you, East LA. Thank you, Legends Animated.
Also, I want to do one quick thing. I just want to plug something because she's in the room, but I host a podcast called Seen on the Screen, and one of my incredible quests over here at Duvet has been, if you've not seen Seen on the Screen, it is a podcast that talks to people that have different jobs within the industry, from folks that are running, like Peter Cujo, who runs Focus Features, to lower level marketing execs. So if you're looking for different jobs in the industry and you want to hear about people's journey to get there, check out Seen on the Screen. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you all. Ric Carlo is also an amazing apprenticeship employer. Handy Foundation has the occupations in post-production. So whether it's animation, live action, apprenticeship's the way. Thank you all. And it's workshop time. All right. So it is time for you to, if you are not sitting at that first